So I'll
start
off with our usual prayer, and that's Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. I was hoping the rabbi would be here today.
He is. He's joining.
Oh, he
He'll
is.
be here in a second.
Because he brought up some things in his Thursday class that will pertain to today's discussion. And I don't want to steal his thunder. So,
okay, if I could have just
There he is.
So David wanted to have a few words. Hi, Rabbi.
Good morning, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom. And today is from William Blake, 1803, The Auguries of Innocence. To see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a very famous poem, and it says a ton. It also shows that a lot of the previous poets and authors, indeed, and this is going to be the only time I mention it, politicians, business people, they were very well versed in ancient scripture. In the Pentateuch, they were versed in the New Testament, and it was very commonplace for people of means to have printed books such as the Zohar and the Pentateuch in their library, even if they were Christian. It would be it was considered a status symbol that you had attained certain knowledge by reading those books. Even Abraham Lincoln is said to have had a lot of information about the Pentateuch as well in his mind.
Yes.
David, you are shaking your head. Were you going to say something?
I was agreeing enthusiastically with what you were saying, Marty.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. And today Sue and I were in a discussion that a lot of the things we used to be taught in high school are no longer taught. Okay, and the things we're accustomed to doing with what are considered retro devices and commentary and things like that, the kids have never heard before, and they're surprised when they hear it today. Very interesting. Maybe that's why we have forgotten how to behave during pandemics, forgotten how to behave in civil fashion, things like that. I don't know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't take up so much time.
I think you should. I think it's
I think each generation says that about the new generation, though.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, the valedictorian gave a speech, and she opened it and quoted something about how awful the youngsters were and blah, and the teenagers, and it was from Roman times.
That's right. Well, I want to welcome everyone. Grace, I see, and also Suzanne is here now, and Don, I guess, is linked in by phone, and Steve is linked in by phone. Rabbi, welcome. There was a reason why I brought that up for discussion, because we are going to be coming back to that discussion, or at least thinking about it, because we're going to be covering the remainder of Jacob's journey back home. And during that, there's a major transition in his overall behavior, and he becomes much more contemplative. He expresses his emotions, but he is more contemplative than he is a doer. And we're going to see that coming up later in our discussions today, which I think is interesting. And there's some other commentary we can have as a result of that. But anyway, Jacob is headed home to his homeland with his family, his entourage, all of his helpers and servants, and the shepherds and all the craftspeople that are with him. And he's going to be going through the land of, I'm not sure of the correct pronunciation, Seir.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi. Seir. That was a lucky guess. And what is about to happen. So we are going to read Genesis 32, verse 4. That's where we're starting.
Genesis 32. Okay.
And if somebody has a text, thank
I
you,
do.
David. Oh, okay, well, David had his hand up first. You're going to
Okay.
read second.
You can have it.
Okay.
Okay. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Then shall ye say unto my lord Esau, Thus saith thy servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed until now. And I have seen the asses and flocks, the men servants and maidservants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and moreover he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and was distressed, and he divided the people that were with him, and the flocks and the herbs and the camels into 2 camps. And he said, If Esau come to the one camp and smite it, then the camp which is left shall escape.
Okay, let's stop at that point. And are there, David, since you did the reading, did you have any comments that you want to make at this point?
Only that Jacob, as he's getting older, seems to be getting a lot more serious and, as you say, contemplative. And he is actually assuming his role as one of the patriarchs of our faith, as it seems fairly obvious in this reading.
What is his motivation?
I think he's trying to find a way to make peace with Esau. That's my guess.
Okay, I would say his motivation is fear, because he remembers what he did to his brother. This takes us all the way back to before Laban, his issues with Laban. It takes us back to the even the birth of Esau and Jacob, and which we had discussed before, and also the issue of the birthright, which we discussed before. But, when you do something with guile, you may get what you want, but you have to suffer the consequences. And part of the consequences were with Laban. Okay, and I guess having 2 wives. But
Marty, you're absolutely right. In fact, it says, then Jacob was greatly afraid and he was distressed. And so you're absolutely right with that. And I think that the feeling of the responsibility is weighing down on his shoulders now. As
yes,
he tries to improve himself.
Yes, he's accepting the responsibility of his actions. This is a change in his character. Yes, Gail, is that a hand or is that a book? Oh, it's your cat. Well, what does the cat have to say?
Marty, where are we?
Okay, Michael, welcome. Hi, Michael. We started with Genesis 32, verse 4.
Genesis 32 verse. Yeah, I had trouble with my computer, and so that's why I came in late.
Okay, well, welcome again.
welcome.
Okay, Genesis 4, you said?
Genesis 32,
Oh, 32, okay,
verse 4.
verse 4. 32, verse 4. When Jacob sent the messengers ahead, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
we're discussing all of the verses between verse 4 and verse 9.
Okay, so we're on 4 right now?
Well, we're discussing that whole bunch, verses 4
paragraph.
through 9, that whole paragraph.
Okay,
All right.
Marty?
Yes, yes.
So as you as the conversation has gone and trying to understand Jacob and his maturity and sense of responsibility at this point, I think it's fair to say that he no longer is only concerned for himself,
Right.
right?
Yes.
He's concerned for his family, for his wives, for his children, for all of his wealth. He now sees himself as a leader rather than just as a participant in the narrative.
Yes. But as a leader, there's a lot along that comes with it, as the rabbi has said, it comes a lot of responsibility. You have to think of your children, your wives, and all the people with you. And he has to make a decision to try to make sure that everyone remains safe. He could go to war with Esau. That is an option. But he's taking a slightly different approach.
He could also take a different route and avoid Esau altogether.
Yes, that's going to come up. Save that discussion
Okay.
for a few minutes to go. In a few minutes, we'll have that discussion. But Ricky, you were going to say something before. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's just that by the fact that he split his camp into two parts, he knew that at least half of his people would be saved, and could. But anyway, I think that was the key thing that jumped out at me.
Okay.
That he
Very
made sure
important.
that that there would be continuance, even if it's only half of it, just to make sure that the line continued.
Yes, Larry, and then the rabbi again.
Okay, to follow up on Ricky's point of the two camps, Bolter has an interesting commentary. A law of binary division runs through the whole Jacob story. Twin brothers struggling over a blessing that cannot be had. Two sisters struggling over a husband's love. Flocks divided into unicolored and particolored animals. Jacob's material blessing now divided into two camps. So this is a theme.
Okay. Very, very good. Very good. Rabbi, you were going to say.
When Jacob sends his messengers on ahead, peace messengers or whatever,
Yeah.
to Esau, why does he find it necessary to tell Esau that he's been staying with Laban all this time? What's the hidden message there? Is it that does Laban have a reputation of being a deceitful character? And Jacob is saying, listen, I was able to withstand all that. Or is he saying, trying to say, well, listen, mom sent me to go to, the family. That's where I've been. Don't hold it against me. I never really understood why he felt that he had to, rather than just, hey, bro, it's nice to see you again. I hope you forgive me. But it's just, no, I've been with Laban all this time.
Anyone? The rabbi asked a question. You're trying to get into the head of one of the patriarchs. Okay,
Sounds like he just
Suzanne.
wants to justify, you know,
I think,
justification. Go ahead,
oh,
Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
um, I just think that he was anticipating Esau's curiosity of where he's been all these years. I mean, I would ask somebody, well, I wouldn't just say somebody, but if my sister disappeared for 20 years and then showed up, I would want to know where she had been.
But why? But why would your sister, in that, if you asked, you bring it up your sister's situation there, if she was away for 20 years and she comes and you don't have to ask the question, but she brings it up, okay, before you can ask the question, where have you been all these years? She brings it up first. What does
Yeah,
that
that's
do?
fine.
Or
Well,
what mood does that set? And then I'll turn it over to David.
well, I guess my thinking would be that she knew I was going to ask that and just went ahead and answered the question. Also, I think by starting off that way, I think that gives Jacob some control of the situation. In other words, if he starts off saying where he's been, and I don't know, does he say what he was doing? I can't remember. That kind of puts him more on the offensive than the defensive.
All right. David, I don't know if it's you or Wendy that wanted to
It's
say
Wendy.
something. Okay.
It's me saying something. Remember, I am not a biblical scholar, but if you look at personalities, Jacob was the stay-at-home brother while Esau did all the hunting. So he was used to being the homebody no matter what else he was doing. So maybe the fact that he found a new home, difficult as it was, and it was no problem waiting around the extra 7 years so he could have Rachel. He was used to staying in one place. The fear factor might have been part of it, but he had found a home, good or bad. And I think he's a freeloader. That was just a part of it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's good. Rabbi, I guess you're up again.
Yeah, I remember quite a few years ago. I was teaching at high school leadership camp, and one of the things that we were doing, and some of you know what I refer to with this, what's called dramaturgy. We were taking some of the stories and bringing them to life, have people play the characters, whatever, but write their own scripts after having read the story. So we were doing a thing on this particular story, and so the high school kids, you would have assumed that they would have started as of the night before the meeting, before whether it was going to be a fight, whether it was going to be reconciled, you would have thought that they would have started with that, but they actually started here, which is the beginning of the parsha, of the Torah portion, and all of a sudden it just came back to me that the assumption was that Esau had stayed at home with Isaac and Rebekah, and so Jacob is sending this message: I was with Lavan, and I'm sorry I never sent a postcard. I'm sorry I never tried to call. But you know what kind of character that Lavan is, and he had such a tight rein on me that I couldn't keep in touch, and and I just recalled that it was a very, very funny skit that the kids had come up with, and it added a different kind of twist the way that they understood the story from their generation and their kind of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to be able to explain your obvious wealth, the size of your family, having 2 wives, a lot of servants, a lot of herds, a lot to be able to give away as a gift. So that one, there may be more to it. So as we're getting into we got a little bit into Jacob's head. What about Esau's head? What does he observe? And this is very important. If let's say Jacob does not give anything to Esau first, but that the gift offering occurs later, what would go through Esau's mind? I see some lips moving, but I don't hear any words. So anybody who has an idea, please verbalize it first.
Could you
Doesn't
ask
it?
the question again? I'm eating a cracker here. so-
Okay, sorry about that. A piece, here you have a gift being given to Esau. And Esau is coming with this, 400-man army, and which is very impressive in and of that. But you're meeting it, what is happening in Esau's mind when he sees this type of gift coming, even before the explanation as to what's going on, because there's a lot more that when we get to this discussion. When the two meet and they start explaining things. But
What are you talking about? I don't catch it.
again, all the sheep and all of the gifts that Jacob is giving.
But I see where he's giving him.
Excuse me?
Oh, I send this message to my Lord in open gaining favor, but I don't see.
Well, we haven't gotten into this discussion yet. We haven't actually read it. But if you give a gift, a very sizable gift beforehand, you're taking the initiative. You're also setting a different stage.
Well, Marty, you're assuming that the message that the messengers are going to, you're assuming that they're bringing some of these flocks and whatever as gift. It doesn't explicitly say that,
Exactly.
but you're assuming that that's part of the message that
Yes,
Jacob is sending.
so
right?
and sending that in that amount, in answer to the rabbi's question, Esau would not know if these are coming directly from Jacob or Jacob and Laban, because it's Laban that has the bigger reputation in that neck of the woods. He really is a man of wealth, and now to see Jacob with it is Esau will not know that if Jacob has an army with him, he won't know but he will know by the size of what he sees coming in advance of what we will be reading. He will now see that, wait a minute, there's a lot more to this group. I don't even know if my 400-man army is going to be big enough to handle this. Now, we have heard the phrase, the best offense is a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed the matter of splitting the tribe in two. Now, in what goes on in Esau's, what does this also do? Here we read of preservation, that at least half of the troop of Jacob's troop of people and flocks and everything may be able to be saved. But on the other hand, if Esau attacks, what do you have in reserve? Those of you who've been in the military know this tactic. Yes, Don.
First of all, sorry I had trouble getting into the meeting, but I guess I'm here now. Well, this very complex bunch of passages because, first of all, the whole operation was triggered by two angels who approached Jacob. So there's some divine intervention here to get it all started. And I guess Jacob must have been going on trust, like, hey, you guys are going to give Esau a little heads up that I'm on my way. But apparently that didn't happen. And so, Jacob is surprised. And at the same time, Laban is having followed Jacob quite a way to catch up with him, is a long way from home base. And so Esau is totally blindsided here. It's just all of a sudden and also I'm wondering, how did Jacob ever escape Laban's camp unseen with all those livestock and people? So it just seems to me that there's a setup for the scene of which Esau is totally unaware, and all of a sudden Jacob forgets that the angels on behalf of God were complicit in this, and then all of a sudden he's thinking a tactical split of his troops in order to provide defensive tactics against Esau in case he's attacked. So I got totally confused by this. There's so many elements in play. And I don't know, I'm just rambling here. But.
Well, one thing that isn't mentioned is if you send messengers ahead and they're going to then report to you, don't you think Esau is going to do the same thing? It isn't mentioned, but wouldn't it be that there would be more at play here?
You think so?
Yeah, anybody. Okay, I guess I'm the only one that's reading things in because there's nothing said about Esau making plans. But why are you going to send 400 troops without having a plan? You have to have scouts going ahead. And so that's why I say that we're only seeing one side of this at this point.
So in other words, Marty, in other words, what you're saying, the messengers come back and tell Jacob, Esau's coming. He has an army of 400 with him, but we don't know how many are still back in the rear guard.
Right.
So we're not convinced what his motivation is. Is he coming as friend or foe? Whatever. We don't know. We don't have enough information to present to you yet.
Yeah.
One thing that the message that Jacob is sending to Esau was the use of the term. I send this message to my Lord in hope. So he's, I don't want to say denigrating himself, but he's putting himself lower than Esau. So he's raising Esau up as my Lord to, I guess, ease the way a little bit.
Yeah, that's going to come. That's going to come very shortly.
Oh, okay.
If any other discussion on this previous.
Yeah, I just have to jump in, not to correct Ricky, but to just add that's, I'm not sure that that's the case. It might be a deferential thing. It also is a fairly standard way of introducing a letter or a message in the Middle East.
Regular diplomacy.
My Lord, dear sir, if it find favor in your eyes, please do that. It's a fairly common type of phrase. It might be what you're suggesting, or it might be just a typical type of phrase.
I think it's rather diplomatic of him.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. So if we read on verse 10, Ricky, since you were you had your hand up second, I would say if you read verse 10.
Then Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your native land and I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone, I crossed the Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count. I'm sure you want to stop there.
Okay, yes. And since you read, well, David has his hand up. So I guess it is Wendy
Me
again.
Is Jacob trying to simply equal out the legacy and saying, I know I took this all, but now here is these gifts, so we are now equal with what we have, and that's his way of making up? Or that's my guess.
Okay, it's a good question. What do you think?
I think he is. That's, to me, if you're going to give somebody a huge gift like that, when you took away everything he could have had, then I think Jacob really is trying to make up with his brother. That, so that's my thought.
Yeah.
So it's reconciliation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Now, what based on yes, Don?
Did Jacob have any intent of meeting up with Esau when he departed Laban's camp? Or was he just out there and thought, hey, not too far away, maybe I could drop in, you know?
Well, he's trying to go the quickest route home. All right, he's still nervous about Laban.
Yeah, so he's kind of caught between two opposing forces.
Okay.
And, because it didn't seem like he had any intent to meet up with Esau before.
Okay, good point. Yes, Ruth Ann.
I mean, we know that, Jacob got the birthright by trickery or whatever. He got it. But the fact that he left, okay, he had to leave. Wouldn't Esau essentially have gotten the birthright anyhow? I mean, he's the son, the person who is capable of doing anything. Isaac, we know, is too old, so he's probably not taking care of the homestead. It's Esau who's taking care of it. So didn't Esau essentially get the birthright anyhow, even without the blessing? And maybe that's what Jacob is afraid of, that he's afraid that Esau's going to think that he's coming back for the blessing for what he was given, way back when, 20 years ago. I mean, we're assuming that there's been no communication at all for 20 years, but I'm sure both of them knew what was going on in each other's camps. They're traders, they're people that probably moved from camp to camp. So I'm sure there was not good communication, but communication.
Well, you asked the question. Did you have a comment about your question? I'm familiar with rhetorical questions asked by this group.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. That he ran away from his birthright, and now he's it sounds like he's not trying to get it back, and maybe that's what he's trying to tell Esau.
Okay. Any comments about what Ruth Ann had said? Yes, Don.
Well, not exactly, indirectly to that, is that Jacob has just deceived Laban And now he's coming up to Esau, who he deceived 20 years earlier. And he's, he's a nomadic guy. So he's out in the desert with someone he just deceived behind him and somebody he deceived ahead of him. And he has no identifiable place to go. So I don't know. Of course, I don't know what was going on in his head, but I wonder if he's thinking I need to have some alliance here. Maybe I'll try to patch it up with Esau. And somehow, stop being another wandering tribe out in the desert. Because I have no idea where he would go were he not able to tie up again with Esau. He's not going back to Laban. And as far as we know, he has no other connections out there.
Okay.
I'll confess that I'm confused in this.
Okay. Suzanne, did you have a hand up before? Or was that okay? Okay. Any other comments?
Let's turn the page and see what happens.
Okay, I was going to turn back a bit because if we go back to Genesis 27, okay, and if we read verse 34. Genesis 27:34, and just read on. That may answer some of the questions because Esau does receive a blessing. Okay, from Isaac. And it discusses everything here that Esau is going to say that and say that was he then named Jacob, that he was my blessing? Excuse me, that he might supplant me in these two times. First, he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. And he added, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Speaking to Isaac. And Isaac replies, but I have made him master over you. I have given him all his brothers and servants and sustained him with grain and wine. What then can I do for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing? Bless me too. I'm sort of, and Esau wept. And his father Isaac answered him, saying, see, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of heaven above. Yet by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restive, you shall break his yoke from your neck.
That's the sentence that jumped out at me.
Yes.
And that's where he becomes basically another whole lineage.
Yeah.
With this one. Let me just get out my magic chart, because we know Esau, let's see, Esau becomes an Edomite and starts another whole dynasty, basically.
Well, Ricky is doing that.
Oh, I've got it right here.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I have it within reach. There's, the names that we're really not that familiar with. Let's see, one of his wives was he married Hittites. Judith and Beshemath, wife number 1 and 2, and another one, number 3. Well, he got 3 wives, but they were all on the Edomite side of the chart here.
Yes, I know you have a chart. Look up Moab.
Who?
Look up Moab.
Moab?
Moab, M-O-A-B.
Moab, where would he fall?
Follow the lineage.
Abimelech. No, Jacob. Wow.
Well, that's that.
Yeah, I'm not catching
Right.
Moab. I mean, I know the name, but
Is
Where should
Moab
I-
a particular name and character at this point, or just
No, that comes
The-
much.
the
That
place in the
comes
tribe,
later. But
right.
Ricky's
Right.
chart will go into that.
later? Yeah,
Yes.
right now it's just a place in a tribe.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's going to be very important in our history, in Jewish history,
Mhm.
or Israelite history. So while Ricky's doing that, Esau harbors, I'm reading on in 41. This is Genesis 27:41. Esau harbors a grudge against Jacob because the blessing of his father had given him. And Esau said to himself, let but the mourning period of my father come, and I will kill my brother Jacob. Okay. And then when those words are reported to Rebecca, then Jacob is going to learn that he has to flee. Okay, I won't take up all the time with rehashing that. So Jacob has learned through the game telephone, if you will, that he'd better get out of town because his brother plans to kill him. Okay. And so this is why Jacob is really concerned about now. He's going to be, he will have to come to terms with not only a threat, and words, if you will, are important. We have said that before, that the words may come to be true. And so Jacob is going to have to wrestle with this fear. He's going to have to, yes, Gail, please.
Is it fear or is it guilt?
It's a combination. I fear that his brother would kill him, and guilt for having done.
I wonder how much guilt he really has. I'm asking, I don't know. It seems to me as if he's feeling very guilty. I think that's one of the reasons for the gifts. It's somehow to atone for what he feels
Mhm.
guilty about.
And maybe assuage
hopefully
the
so.
situation. Yes. Larry, yes.
In 32:11, I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have steadfastly done for your servant. Now, that is guilt. He knows
Yes.
he's guilty and he is unworthy.
Good point. Good point. He's bringing it up, but he takes if again, I am going to raise that same question I raised before. If in his behavior, what is the tone he is setting?
Jacob or Esau?
Jacob. Now, what is Jacob? You jump forward again to where we are, and what is the tone he is trying to set in all of this?
deference.
Excuse me, I didn't.
Deference.
Okay.
Really?
He's showing some humbleness.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. And he's trying to atone for doing this. And
But
Rabbi,
who is he being deferential to, and who's he setting the tone for at this point? Is it to Esau or is it to God?
To God.
to God. Yes, it's going to play out for both, but he's invoking God.
Mhm.
God's, you said you're going to be helping me at Bethel. I'm trying my best to go through all of these things. I've learned how to be a little more humble. And as a result, I have better things have happened to me. But I'm so fearful that I'm going to need your help too, God. Any questions about that? So how many times is he going to, well, is he trying to be the peacemaker? Yes. Well, I was getting to that, Grace. Yes. Grace, you'll have to unmute yourself, and you may want to explain that a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, muted is easier because there's background noise where I am, and I didn't want to flood you with all of it.
Oh, you're doing okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, reading the story and then reflecting back a few pages, the idea that I'm getting is that Jacob has this blessing, and he's setting precedents, both before God, and I think he's trying to, level the playing field, because Esau's armies outnumber him, and his, even though Rebecca said, you need to leave here and go stay with, Laban until your brother cools down a little bit because he's so angry and hostile. So I think he's just trying to make way for himself as well as for, his brother, his family, his tribe. But the separation of the tribes has already really occurred previously. So I'm doing a little guesswork here, and I've read some of the commentaries. And is he trying to win favor with God? Because he already knows he's got some favor with God, but he's actually, I believe, Jacob's just the example. And Esau's not seeing that he's already been blessed as well. I'm not sure that Esau's.
But he receives a different blessing.
Yeah, he receives a different blessing.
Anything else before we see what we can discuss? So God, if we read verse 13, what does God wind up saying in response to Jacob's plea?
He affirms the blessing.
He
affirms the promise.
Yes, and so so now, if somebody, if you're planning to give all these lavish gifts, and if you're fearful, but someone who obviously is very, very powerful says, you don't have to worry, I will still be with you. Do you have to still be humble in your dealings with Esau? Or do you have another choice that you can make? I personally, I think Jacob has two choices here. He can either say, okay, God's on my side. I don't have to worry about things now. I can go ahead and clash with my brother. Or he can take his original past, his original idea and to avert a conflict. So any discussion there? So this, I personally think that this is also a test at this point. Just because God says, I'm going to be with you, and you're going to reap all these gifts and the bounty, you still have to interpret that. The responsibility of interpretation is still up to Jacob.
Don't let it go to your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always think, pray for potatoes, but pick up a hoe. I mean, just because God's with me doesn't mean I have to sit on my kisker and just do nothing. I still have to do whatever.
That's right. He still has to come up, make a human decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pick up a hoe.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Any yes, Gail.
Well, I was just going to say, you want action, not just words. I mean, words are one thing, but action
Exactly.
is the thing that really count.
And that's what.
Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
Okay. So so rather than God saying, this is what you should do, okay, he's saying, he's basically, in a way, he's answering the question that Cain raised. Am I my brother's keeper? And God doesn't answer. You know, you should know that already. And so maybe Jacob's coming around. Yes, Rabbi.
Just to throw it out as an aside, this whole story, especially with Esau, and as Ricky was looking at, that who is the father of the Edomites, and named Edom because it refers to the red, the reddishness of Esau himself. But the whole story and all of these quotes, if you will, that Marty is very astutely pointing out, become a literary paradigm for Israel versus Rome. In the rabbinic mind, Edom is Rome.
Yes.
And all of those issues play out in light of this conversation, and Jacob, who is known as Israel, pleading for God to remember that covenant and be with him, even as Israel faces Esau, which is Edom, which is Rome, throughout history. And that becomes the paradigm for understanding in rabbinic literature of understanding all of those confrontations, if you will. There are times when they hug and kiss, but those are few and far between.
So I think that this passage has influenced a lot of thinking in modern days, possibly seeding the Gaza Strip as a gift, as a peace offering. It may not have been intentionally this passage, but it may have set a stage that maybe someone has to take the first step to arrange a peace accord. And hostility does not lead to more, peace. So you have to come up with another idea sometimes. I don't know, but it's something to think about. Yes, Suzanne.
Do you think Rebecca ever told Esau her role in that whole deal with Jacob getting the blessing and all?
I don't think it's stated.
No, it's not. I'm just.
Yeah, I just don't know.
The reason I asked that is because of well, we haven't just read it yet, but Esau seems, well, he will give Jacob a hug and all. So I just wondered if that was a hint that maybe Rebecca told him of her role in the deception.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't say, and I guess we'll never know. Of course, as a mother, it wasn't right of her to favor one son over another in like that, especially like that.
Well, and she was a
Yes,
double, yeah, she was a double deceiver because she not only deceived her son, she deceived her husband.
Oh, yes, you're right.
No, I mean, not nice, not good.
interesting. Very interesting. Any other comments before we move on? Yes, Grace, you're muted.
Yeah, just the idea that perhaps Jacob put himself in a rather dangerous position. And one of the Talmudic rabbi in the commentary, it's critical of Jacob on the grounds that one should never put himself in a dangerous place and then ask that a miracle be performed.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that pretty thought-provoking myself.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yes, Don.
I do that all the time, but I did, and this may be a digression, but underneath all of everything we've read so far is the transfer of property rights. And I remember thinking, going back to Abraham, where his biggest concern was an heir with Sarah, so he could be able to transfer his property. And so now we've got property rights again between Esau and Jacob. We have property rights between Laban and Jacob. And I've never understood how you got property rights in those days. I mean, there weren't any deeds or. This is a digression, but it's been needling me for a long time. So just in the case of Jacob giving Esau a gift, he's transferring back some of the property that he may have thought that he'd taken from Esau, which he did take from Esau. So is there anything to discover in these verses about how property is allocated, how the boundaries are drawn, who owns what? It just seems to go on as an undercurrent. I may be kind of be crashing off in the woods on this, so tell me if it's not really relevant.
I think it's an important question.
Yeah.
We do know that if we go back many generations, Noah's sons and grandchildren, they have, if you will, cities or city-states named after them. And and also going as far back as Padam is referred to again and again. It's sort of like a city-state, if you will. And how they form, I would assume, and this is an assumption on my part, and if anyone knows more information on this, It would be by alliances and conflict as to how they would be, each one of these city-states would survive or not. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area. Ricky, I know you like archaeology, and Rabbi, you've probably covered some of this.
Yeah, Lot was given the option as to land. But at first, my first reaction was, is he giving him land, property rights, or is he giving him things, sheeps and cows and thises and that's? But you're right that, later also we see, the tribes each gets their own little place. But it seems to me Lot was given the choice of what parcel to pick up.
Yes.
So there was property issues there was property issues way back, so you're right that this isn't, that it is a property thing probably. That was my thought. I switched thinking when I was listening to you.
Rabbi?
Yeah, I don't have a particular answer to Don's question. It is a good question. I'm kind of racking my brain if there are any, if there's any, reference to written documents or deeds about land. And I can't necessarily think about, I know that they had markers for direction. And I had markers that might provide a loose border, but nothing compared to what cartographers would have, later on, that I'm aware of. The earliest documents seem more to be related to ownership of, like Ricky would say, ownership of things, which included a wife. So we know that already within a couple generations or a couple hundred years of what's happening here, we know that they had documents, like some sort of a marriage document, or when a bill of sale kind of thing. But as far as property being delineated, I can't think of anything until times of the kings, probably.
What about wells?
Moses breaks up into the tribes. Gives not is it
Well,
Moses?
absolutely, they get broken up into the territory of the tribes, the possession of the tribes. But I'm not aware that they had a specific, border line.
Right.
Everybody would know. It said that Naphtali had the area that went from this town to that town.
Right.
But whether there was just the assumption that everyone who lived in the area knew what that meant.
It's an interesting question, Don. Thank you. Yes, Gail.
Well, I was just thinking about grazing rights. When you have cattle and sheep, you don't graze them in the same places at the same time. Sheep will take it right down to the, bare ground. So my thought would be probably, one person would have sheep and another would have cattle. You're not going to graze them in the same place. You might have a territory, but this is a shifting geography. It's not something that's that stable because it's going to depend on the weather and, all kinds of things. So I don't know about boundaries. You might have a general territory based around a well, perhaps, but grazing rights would be more important than borders. And that would be dependent on weather and, all kinds of things.
And the topography of the land.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Well, any further discussion before we read on? Well, let's speed up to verse 14. Only covered 10 verses. So let's start if somebody would like to read from verse 14.
Hey, I'd be happy to do it.
Please, Dave.
Okay, and he lodged there that night and took of that which he had with him a present for Esau, his brother, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch camels and their colts, 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hands of his servants, every drove by itself, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and ask thee, saying, Whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, These are my servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my Lord, even unto Esau. And behold, he also is behind us.
Okay. Do you want to? Why don't we read on just a little bit more?
Alrighty. And he commanded also the second and the third and all that followed the droves, saying, In this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when ye find him. And ye shall say, Moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept me. So the present passed over before him, and he himself lodged that night in the camp.
Okay. Let's stop at that point. Any comments? We've sort of discussed some of this already, but any other comments about this?
Well, I'm just going to pick up on the animals. I think they finally figured out they need a lot more females than males because of gestation period. So, I mean, it looked like a 10-to-1 ratio until we got to the cows and the bulls. Oh, and the asses. But anyway, I just kind of chuckled at that there was that realization.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Was there something going through your mind that was important?
Well, he sure has given them a lot. You know, now we finally have the gift that you referred to earlier that I was saying, what gift, when we were back.
I know, I jumped ahead accidentally.
And I was going, and the fact that he's giving this message to multiple people to make sure that the message gets through to Esau, I think is important. But always reminding them to say that don't forget Jacob's behind me. So he's really paving the way here. He's buttering up the guy, trying to,
Yeah. Does anyone know? Oh, yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, I can't get the Charlie Chaplin-esque kind of picture out of my mind of, we walk another 10 feet and here come another 100 things. And then you walk another, here come another 100 things, every time you open another door, more people come out of it, or more cattle come out of it, or more lambs come out of it. And each time, is he being overwhelmed? Is he really being impressed? I don't know, but that's the vision that I have.
Sure, I agree. Yes, Ruth Ann.
I was thinking more that Jacob seems to be a coward. He's putting all these people and all these things ahead of him. Why doesn't he just give one gift and hey, here I am, brother. This is for you. And it's like, we really don't know what was in his head. I mean, he might have been planning on fleeing, we don't know. He's back there in the safety of, it's just like any other army, the generals are back in the safety of whatever. And it's the young men that have absolutely nothing to do with the conflict. It's like, I always say, instead of a war, why don't the two leaders of the country get into the boxing ring and duke it out themselves and save all these young men's lives. I really think he's a coward at this point.
Good point. Good point. I think that's an interesting take. But again, a lot of the epic movies, this brings to mind also the epic movies of Cleopatra and plays such as Julius Caesar and other. This is in all of these epic tales when somebody is arriving of very great importance, the entourage is set in advance. Okay, all these people, not only people but animals and everything, they come ahead of the main character and the main character's army. So I wonder if that's why I say I'm still not sure if this is a military ploy or if this is also a sign of benevolence. If you accept all of this, we don't have to have any conflict whatsoever. The same holds true today in how people use the bargaining chips diplomatically to try to come to a peace agreement. I'll give you this, and the other side is expected to give something in return and so forth until you achieve a level. Hey, we've given so much, there's no need to have any conflict whatsoever. We've learned from this exchange that it's there. So this is nothing new to any of us. But the reasoning behind it, still the motives behind it, can still be questioned, as everyone is bringing up. So I just want to make mention of that. Yes, Ricky.
Okay, I'm reading from something, commentary here. And so doing, well, first, he's giving all this stuff to Esau in hope of assuaging his wrath. In so doing, Jacob set a pattern for future generations that would confront Esau's oppression, blah, 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 and said it must appease its enemies in terms that they, in their greed, can comprehend. So they're assuming, all right, this commentary is assuming that Jacob thinks that Esau's greedy and therefore give him all this stuff ahead of time and shut him up.
Yeah, and it says here, if you verse 21, if you reread that aloud for us, Ricky. 21, and you shall add, and your servant Jacob himself is right behind us, for he reasoned, if I propitiate, presence in advance, with presence in advance and then face him, perhaps he will show me favor. And it doesn't use the word greed, but that's what it means. And so right. The gift went on ahead, in which while he remained in camp that night. Right. Any other comments here? Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little survey on that same verse. What translation do people have of what Jacob said? I mean, this one says, for he reasoned, after the servants say, and Jacob himself is right behind us, okay. For he thought, and then what's the next phrase in your English?
21.
Larry.
Okay. Let me placate him with the tribute that goes before me.
So placate.
Yes.
In the sense of, to please him, bribe him. Okay. What?
Yes.
Someone else have something?
I have appease. Oh.
I'm sorry, Suzanne. What did you have?
Appease.
Appease. Okay.
I have win him
Gail's
over.
Nodding. Ruth Ann, what?
Win him over.
Win him over. Interesting. The Hebrew, and I'm not saying that any of those are incorrect, but the Hebrew verb is one that we will all recognize. It's kaper, like
30
from Kippur.
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, the Hebrew, at least the origin of the word is that this is how I will seek atonement. This is how I will ask his for, and seek
Right,
his
this-
forgiveness.
58.
So how many times is he going to, he's showing all of these, asking for forgiveness, but now in a while, we're also going to see how the interaction between Esau and Jacob unfolds. And you see how what he's going to do in order to atone for this. Thank you, Rabbi. Because it really it dovetails into what, and Michael has brought this up before, how many times somebody has to say they're sorry. And before I know he has mentioned this before, and it's come up in discussion. So you're seeing this type of action that's going to become important in what we say we need to atone for, and also with Yom Kippur. So Michael, when we get to it, I'll ask you that question again. How many times do you have to say I'm sorry to somebody to be totally forgiven? Okay, if they reject your first atonement, your second atonement, okay, you've said that before. So we'll get to this in a while. What do we any further discussion on what we've been reading? The rabbi has given us a clue as to where we're headed, but any other discussion, any other ideas about what we've read? If not, if we can go on to verse 23.
All right, since David and I seem to be alternating. 23. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, he crossed the ford of the Jabbok, I don't know. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. And when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is his name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping on his hip. That is why children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle.
Okay, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And we have lots to discuss here. But let's go back to, and this has nothing to do with the movie Star Wars and and Han Solo meeting Jabba the Hutt. Okay, this has nothing to do with that, but the name may have been taken from this book. But anyway, Jacob fords the river with his 2 wives, maidservants, and 11 children, and he crosses the stream. He sent across all his possessions across this stream at night. Any questions? Is this normal behavior, or would you cross a river or a stream during the day or at night in normal circumstances?
Definitely day.
Why?
So you can see the stepping stones.
Good point. Very good point. What else?
Well, if you're crossing a stream during the day, you can see if there's any hazards in the water.
Sure, that's right. That
Or-
dovetails into the.
Yeah.
That's right. So yes, Don.
Well, crossing a river, crossing a stream, crossing any body of water is profoundly metaphorical. I mean, throughout the world, it kind of foreshadows some big change is going to happen here.
Yeah, just think back to the old Western movies. Every time they crossed a stream or a river, they had to do some fighting with either somebody coming up behind them, or they had somebody ahead of them that they had to deal with. So the stream, as Don said, yeah, just in and of itself, was used even in the old Westerns. Any other comments? Well, any other ideas from what we just read?
Well, I have a question, I guess. I never understood why Jacob's, was it his hip that, or thigh that gets injured? I never understood that.
You want to repeat that again?
I never understood. I mean, he's wrestling here, and I never understood why his thigh or hip was injured. I mean, the implication to me is that he's in a sense either wrestling with God or maybe the Holy Spirit, or, well, in my case, I could maybe think Jesus Christ. But I just, the thing about his hip being injured just I never got that.
Okay. Well, the Kabbalists have fun with that. And if we have time, I can come back to that. But from the standpoint of what's going on here, even before that, Jacob is left alone. Okay, everything has gone ahead of him, and now in verse 25, Jacob was left alone. What does, okay, he's encouraged everyone to go ahead of him, and we've discussed that. What are the motives? Yes, David, yes.
Oh, it's me again.
Okay, Wendy.
Way back when, in one of our discussions here, they had talked about making agreements with people and putting their hand on their thigh.
Yes.
Now, the fact that he broke the thigh from the leg, does that mean they broke an agreement? What was that reasoning? That's my question.
That's an interesting
That has
Okay,
to
a
do
lot of
with-
hands went up at once. Michael, you haven't had a chance yet, so I'm going to let you go first, and then Ricky.
Well, the way I understand that is the hand under the thigh is where the man is close to man's testicle, and that is in somewhat in reference to testimony. When you're taking someone's testimony, it kind of refers to that. And also, I also believe, but this is a personal, unless it's somewhere is written down, but it's also, in my opinion, it demonstrates life by doing that because of the circumstances and that situation. And that's more or less how I would read it and kind of understand it.
Okay. Okay, that's for taking the oaths. Ricky, you had your hand up too.
Yeah,
Yes.
Old Testament, but what I envision here is an MMA bout, multiple martial arts, and you're wrestling, and he's not getting anywhere, so the guy grabs him by the leg and swings him around like on the WWF things. That's what I'm visualizing here, and why? Because he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so I picture he's got him by the leg and throwing him over his head or something.
Okay. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Any other ideas?
So we're just stopping at that sentence
Yeah,
rather
okay.
than going on.
And then Jacob
I'm
is
back.
going
Can
to
I-
have a limp there from that.
Yeah, can I jump in again, Ricky?
Sure, Rabbi.
Your English is a commentary, because the Hebrew doesn't say wrenched. The Hebrew just basically says that he touched it.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by wrenching, the translator or the editor also probably had the television going with MMA or something on the background, and he was picturing the same thing as you. But seriously, that what Michael was talking about, that this specifically relates to making that statement of touching near the genitals, and that's as close as one person can come, with the recognition that I can really harm you. I can not only harm you, but I can prevent you from having descendants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how important this gesture of control is. The other explanation, and I don't see it in the commentary here that I'm looking at right now, some of you may have it in the background, is that there are some critical scholars who believe that these extra 2-3 lines at the end of the story are an addition, what they call an ellipsis or something, as a way, because in some of the kosher laws, there are things that say which particular cuts of meat and whatever are kosher, not kosher. And this was an explanation that was given after the fact to explain one that they didn't have very good stories about. So they kind of added this on at the end of the story. And that's why the Jews don't eat this particular cut, because of the particular ligament or tendon or whatever.
Okay.
Rabbi, the other Bible says
wait, Ricky. Ricky, are you responding to the rabbi because Gail has her hand up?
Well, I just wanted to give a different word other than wrenched.
Okay.
My other Bible said he struck the socket of his hip. So
Okay.
There are different words. There's different words for to strike or to smite. This one is specifically just to touch, but it doesn't doesn't say how strong of a touch it is.
Okay.
Very good. Yes, Gail.
To me, I interpreted he's wrestling with his conscience. That's how I would interpret it. The heck with a hip socket. He's just wrestling with his conscience.
Okay. Would you like to hear a few words from, there are several different interpretations that I have here, but I thought that it was rather interesting. And since most commentaries are from men, I am going to read one from a woman who is a psychologist. and her name is Dorothy Felix. Jacob's struggle with the adversary was a numinous confrontation with the shadow, or the dark, selfish side of him. When the adversary wanted to quit, Jacob said, "No, I will not let you go unless you bless me." What did Jacob mean by this? He meant, I will not part from this experience unless I find a meaning to my suffering. Suffering of itself does not heal. Only suffering that has meaning and is accepted willingly has the power to heal or to transform an individual into a whole person. That is, someone who is undivided, who can come up to terms with himself and even with his enemies, as Jacob did with Esau and Laban. Jung named this process of growth from one stage of awareness to another, individuation. Transformation or real change of character can take place in a person only when, through suffering, he engages in an active struggle with the shadow, the dark side of himself. And I apologize, this is from Esther Spitzer. Okay, Donna, and then I'll read another one, also by a woman. Yes.
Well, if you're not finished, Marty,
It's okay, you go ahead, Don.
Okay, well, I thought those few verses are deep and compressed because starts off crossing a river, so you know something big is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then Jacob's wrestling all night with this unknown figure, and it struck me as being very Jungian too, wrestling with his dark side. And then right after that, he sees God face to face, which is about as profound as you can get. And so he's had some kind of revelation, life-changing event here. And I was reminded of in the New Testament, there's the line, now you see through a glass darkly, but later you shall see face to face, meaning about the same thing. So in many different levels, Jacob has had a huge change. It's almost like a puberty rite. You know, he's gone from being a boy to a man and self-aware of his responsibility. I don't want to read that much into it.
Okay, well, that's a very good one. That's very good. Yes, Larry.
To follow up on Don's point of the significance of the wrestling match, which was then followed by a life change, it was also followed by a name change. And previously we saw changes from Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah, now Jacob to Israel. And that is major. I mean, I think we should talk more, the significance.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. Any other comment? I have another commentary here. This one is Dorothy's comment. Any other comments? Okay, the mysterious Dorothy Zelig says the mysterious figure represents both elements of a conflict: the dangerous forces of the id and the strength of the superego. Therefore, he is both man and angel at the same time. Even as within himself, Jacob experiences the battle between different aspects of his personality, so the figure with whom he struggles is a mirror-like reflection of the self, with the forces of good and evil engaged. In dramatic intrapsychic conflict, Jacob was wrestling with his own projected image of himself. A further meaning of Jacob's uncanny guess may be to regard him as a symbol of death. The situation fittingly calls for such a condition. Death and a father image were certainly associated in Jacob's mind that night. To the unconscious, death is the punishment for aggression. Aggression against the father. So you guys have touched on a few things, and this brought something into it. Don, in answer to your question, this comes up. Has anyone ever been on a river that was jet black? I have, from tannins that seep into the water, and it creates a black river or stream. And you don't see the bottom. You can't look through it. You only see your own image. Okay? You never see what's on the other side. Sort of like on the police TV shows, they always have a room with a giant mirror, and they can adjust it so you can see through it, or you can't see through it at all. You see yourself. And so it's an interesting concept here. So is Jacob wrestling with his God within, his superego or consciousness, his conscience, or is he wrestling with God? Because in my version, let me go back. And let me get back here. It says in verse 26, when he, small h, that he, small h, had not prevailed against him, small h, he, wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, ... There's no capital H, which is usually put in here for God. Yes, Rabbi, I think you had a finger up.
I did. It was easier than do the whole hand. There's another whole series of comments and interpretations. If you go back to that phrase of, for you have wrestled or struggled with beings divine and human and have prevailed, there's no, there's, like I said, there's a whole other stream of interpretation that it's not referring to the same struggle. Mm-hmm. It's referring to two different times or two different experiences or multiple experiences in Jacob's life, not just this one particular moment that night. So now the man, and it's an ish, it's not a malach, it's not an angel. It's the man with whom he struggles, and I'm taking it away from the psychoanalytic. The man with whom he struggled, is aware of Jacob's history, knows that there have been moments when Jacob had to struggle, at least emotionally, if not physically and spiritually, with God in his life. And now he's also had this wrestling match and has proven himself, so he can now carry on the blessed name of Israel. So there's a whole other, way of looking at it too.
Yes, well, I brought it up only because I wanted to show a different way of looking at this.
Right.
That's all. Because the traditional way has always been that this is a wrestling match with God, or a wrestling match with a capital G, and also with an angel. Jacob wrestling with an angel, and we have always been shown that. But when you see it as small he's and everything, you have to wonder what the intent is. That's all I can say. Small he's. Yes, Larry.
A question. The wrestling match ends with the coming of the dawn, daylight. Yes. What is the significance of coming out from night to day? Is that significant?
Well, since I say, if it's a rhetorical question, please, what is the explanation you have?
No,
oh, it's just straightforward.
They emphasize
the
timing when it ends.
Right.
And I don't think it's just a coincidence. There are night demons that some believe, or I'm questioning. I'm not.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have an answer.
Gail?
The answer becomes clear when you can see the answer is there. I mean, that's the way I would interpret the daylight, things.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good.
My question, though, is why is the man, person, whatever it is, why is he asking Jacob what his name is?
No, Jacob asks him what his name is.
Oh, he asked him. I'm sorry. You're right.
Right. It gets confusing with the small H's.
Right.
Right.
Which he. Right. Now Jacob asks the opponent.
Right. And then
because the answer is Jacob.
What is your name? And he said Jacob.
Jacob.
And he said, not Jacob shall your name be. So why is he at? Are you following? I'm on number
28.
28. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. Well, why is he asking what his name? I don't quite understand. Why doesn't he just say, instead of Jacob, your name should be Israel?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're getting tied up with all the capital H's and small H's. Okay, first Suzanne and then Don.
Okay. I use the King James Bible here, and typically the H's are in lowercase, be it God or, again, in my case, Jesus Christ. We, in our modern English, are used to a capital H for the word he in referring to God. And the second thing is that Jacob had to be wrestling with God because no one else in the Bible has changed anybody's name except God.
Why is he asking him in the first place?
Well, no, Jacob. Oh, right. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. Well, that's because he was leading into telling him his name's not Jacob anymore, but Israel. So I think that was just a way of telling Jacob his name. God just changed his name.
Okay. Don?
Yeah, it seems to me that was only the second time after Abraham that anybody's name got changed. So whoever that was, small h, big H, had a lot of authority. And I think it had to be big H in principle. I mean, this is still such a profound passage, and if it's small h, then it had to be his orthopedist.
Did you say orthopedist?
Yeah, really hit me. I mean, I had a hip replacement a few years ago, and I'm running.
Okay.
But you didn't change your name at the time of the surgery, did you?
wasn't offered the chance, I would have changed anything.
Well, I have another commentary. I have another commentary by Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan. And he addresses the demonic. Okay, modern rationalism until recently regarded all allusion to demons merely as a vestige of ancient superstition. Now, however, we realize that to a large extent the ancient belief in demons was a crude way of accounting for the unconscious and almost uncontrollable forces in human nature itself. And the Torah teaching that God wards off from Israel the danger of the demons acquires a new relevance. The latest outbreak of the demonic forces in the world that left Israel limping is very much in need of being encountered by the faith that Israel will not only survive, but come away from the tragic experience with renewed strength and blessing. That is to be the meaning of the establishment also for the state of Israel. So, so the limping has been, has been spoken about many times. And again, I have to ask the rabbi a question. To me, it almost became a folktale as to why, as you said, as you pointed out, they insert, well, this is why we don't, why we have to go through the koshering process of stripping, my grandmother used to call it a vein, but it's really the nerve and vein together. But she used to do her own koshering with salt and all kinds of things all the time. So is this a folk tale to explain a custom?
Could very well be. Could very well be to explain a custom, to give a justification for not the name change, which implies joining into the covenant. Certainly could be folktale. Could be adding a layer of connection to the deity onto a different kind of story, a very practical military story, that the man with whom he wrestled was an emissary, a soldier sent by Esau on ahead.
Sure.
But this advanced, like David and Goliath, you send out your strongest character. But that guy, he didn't know Jacob's name, kind of thing. But that was a typical kind of warfare tactic. And then again, the storytellers saw an opportunity to add in here that the name change and give it and the place is going to be called Peniel because that means we've seen the face of God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But God Elohim has many different understandings at this point in the text, depending on the writer. So Elohim could very well, or El could very well mean not a henchman, but a man of strength, a warrior kind of thing. That you wrestled with someone who represents divine power. But again, not in the sense that we understand that, but in the sense that these two opposing armies in their clash might have understood it. So, long answer to Marty to your question: could it be the overlay of a folktale? Absolutely, absolutely.
Any other discussion? Because I came up with another interpretation. Okay, that it has some relevance as well. Ricky disappeared for a while but she has.
I'm within the range.
Oh, okay. Ricky.
You say you were deranged? My computer went a little bit.
Why was I called? I am
Okay.
here. I am.
Okay.
Inani.
You have a Sephirotic chart in front of you.
Yes. Okay. Yep. It's within reach, of course. What do we want?
Because Ricky has studied some of the Kabbalah, and I
Well,
wanted to
the
let her have a
Sephiroth.
chance.
What's your question?
Okay. You have the Sephirotic chart, the more common chart that's used. Let's put it that way. And if you go from Tiferet,
Yeah.
which represents Jacob, okay.
Wait a minute. Whoops, I got to. Tiferet, which is Jacob. Yep.
Okay, and you'll see there are two parallel lower
Neshech and Rod?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and one is splendor,
And the other's victory.
and the other is endurance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, victory. The splendor one, and I always have trouble with that word, but I found somewhere else that uses the word persistence or holding on.
Okay,
As
right,
splendor.
right.
And victory.
And what else do they mean besides the right, endurance, and that is the right leg, or the right thigh.
Yeah.
Okay, but Jacob is touched on his left thigh.
Well, okay. Another thing I have, the source of Neshes, victory, conquest.
Right, that's right. What about Hod?
What about Hod? What are you looking at?
The
Humility?
left thigh, the left leg, or the left thigh. It also signifies prophecy, but splendor.
Well, splendor was.
What does splendor suggest? We have a phrase that's splendiferous. What does that imply? What does it connote?
Splendiferous?
Splendor or splendiferous that's a statement that people used to make in the 60s.
Yeah, I remember the word, but I don't remember exactly. Whoa.
Grand. Okay. Something that is.
Ricky or Marty, does somebody have the Hebrew word that's used there?
Just for Hod. I don't have that.
Okay.
I don't have that.
Okay.
But both hips represent prophecy, but the left leg or legs represent prophecy in the Sephirotic chart, but specifically the left deals with splendor, okay, grandness, if you will, but leaves intact endurance, the right leg and thigh. And so, as was mentioned, Jacob had endurance, but whatever he thought of himself, that his grand ego is there, has been touched.
You're talking about humility.
Humility. Okay, bend. You have to bend at the knee. Okay, to show a sign of humility. So whether it's hip or knee, it doesn't matter. But the point is that it's also a reminder. Don't forget what I have prophesied. So this is Kabbalistic.
Stretch.
It's a stretch. Yes, it is. But it comes up in the discussions in the
And
Zohar.
one of the reasons I was asking for the Hebrew is whether it was getting to the point that you got, but that you got to, but it came around it from a different way.
Right.
You know the word blessing, right? In
Mhm.
Hebrew, which is Baruch or
Baruch.
Baracha, right?
Right.
And the knees, all right, are is a knee is berech, which is why we get bending the knee. Okay, and then they make the connection because what's the word for birthright is bechora, same letters, just change around the order a little bit. Okay, so
Right.
that's how they connect it to Jacob specifically, because that with the humility and the interpreting the blessing by his knees, because he actually acquired the bechora, the birthright blessing.
And from that, I have to ask a question about the name of this flowing water, the river. The same letters, okay? It would be
Yabok.
Jabok.
Yabok. In Hebrew.
Yabok. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
actually they say the connection is not Yaakov Yabok. They say it's to Vayeyavek, which is the Jacob being alone.
Okay.
Okay. That's what they say that the etymological connection is. Let me see back in verse in 25. Vayivater Yaakov levado vayeyavek ish. That was the struggle occurred at the Yabok. They connect those two words. Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like saying, I'm reminding you of, or I'm reminding myself, depending on how we're going to interpret, of the blessing that at this site, and that here it's the site of a river that also can, winds up having the same word root, if you will. And I just found it interesting, from that standpoint. And I don't know if anything is actually written about the river in that regard. I haven't seen anything.
I don't know.
Okay. Yes, Ricky.
I want to go back to the Hud and Neshes. Jacob is, I'll just say, wounded in his left leg.
Right.
Hud. Now, is that supposed to be that he has a struggle with perseverance and humility, or what is it about that wound? I mean, and I'll be honest, I'll tell you the reason why. Anybody who's watched me walk, if I'm tired, my right hip has been a problem for me for years. And I've always tried to associate that with neshes, which is the capacity for overcoming. And does that mean I still have more to overcome, or I have worked so hard at overcoming? I mean, I always just sort of play with those two. But what is it that
you better call Don's orthopedic surgeon?
Believe me, I've done that. And I know the problem. It's a shortened piriformis muscle, if anybody really wants to know. But in Jacob's case, he's got this permanent issue. I don't know if I want to call it a wound, a reminder, or whatever. Does that mean he should be focusing on that aspect, or that he has worked hard at that aspect, worked through that aspect? That was sort of the question, which I then, of course, referred back to myself.
Maybe it's that you just have to get rid of the concept of your ego, the splendor that you have imposed upon yourself.
No,
and
that's
if
splendor problem.
That's right. And by damaging that side, Okay, it's a reminder, could be a reminder that's not so important anymore. You can still get through this without thinking you're head honcho.
Okay.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm saying when you bring into the play of psychology and Kabbalah and all of these different
We need a
various
psychological
interpretations, you move away from the traditional, but you have to know that they're out there. I don't want to spend a lot of time dealing with these other things. We overspent the time, but I just wanted to bring it up. But I think that this is where reading, our reading is very, very important. The variety of books that we read, the different resource material, it just expands us into thinking about any particular incident in a slightly different way. But let's come back to the traditional ways. I don't want to overemphasize all the non-traditional. We spent too much time on the non-traditional.
That's where the fun is.
Oh, Marty,
It's fun, yes.
where does it say left thigh or hip?
It doesn't in the Torah. It's in the Kabbalistic.
In the
stuff that they're talking
Kabbalistic.
about.
Oh, because okay. Thank you.
So it's a little different part of it, but thank you. Any other? We still have plenty of time.
No, we don't.
Oh no, we don't.
No, we don't.
Out of time.
Time goes quickly when you're having fun.
That's golly. Okay, I'm sorry for.
Dawn is rising.
Okay. So any further comments that anyone wants to make or announcements? Yes, Michael.
I just wanted to, I don't know if, and I don't want to change the subject or go on another track, but I just wanted to make quick comment about what Gail said about the absence of light, that going way back in the discussion.
Okay.
And things do, of course, become more clear in the day, because you don't say it the other way around. The absence of dark, it's always the absence of light which creates darkness. And in the Hebrew, so I would address these comments or question to the rabbi, because he would know better than me. In the Jewish and Hebrew festivals, candles are usually lit at night, as far as I would understand it. And so why is that they're really not lit, candles are not lit normally in the day when everything is more clear? And so that's a kind of a puzzlement to me. And I know there's a good reason, I'm sure, but I just don't know exactly what it would be.
There could be all kinds of symbolic reasons to bring light into the darkness, to bring warmth into the cold. You could have those things, but the reason that we light the candles in the evening is because we mark the day from evening to morning, and once the quote unquote the day starts, whether in Shabbat or a holiday specifically, then in most of those holidays you're forbidden from lighting fire.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to light the candles first, and that then ushers in the holiday.
Yeah, Michael, the candles are never lit at night. It's always still daylight.
18 minutes before.
And your holiday or your Shabbat begins when you see the candles.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you want to start your holiday earlier, you can by lighting the candles.
But when you do that, for example, if I understand you correctly, on Shabbat, the The candles are lit at sundown or just before. Usually you get it from the Jewish calendar, the lighting of the candle. And that's
No
what I'm
later
getting.
than.
Right.
No,
But if
no
you say,
later than.
right, but if you no later, but you can do it earlier. Once you do it earlier, you still then you still have to follow the tradition of the Shabbat.
Right,
Would that
Right.
be correct?
right.
Cool. I like that.
Thank you for asking the question, Michael, and thank you, Rabbi. Yes, Gail.
Marty, I have a request. Thanksgiving is coming up Thursday. I'd like to hear everyone say one thing about what they're thankful for before we leave today.
Okay. I would like to mention something too after everyone is finished. But yes, please.
I'll start just because I did it
Sure.
first. I'm thankful that all my friends and family are still healthy.
Yes.
I'm thankful I have enough space outside to have a few people over and I get to roast a 20-pound turkey. And everybody else is bringing everything else.
And I'm happy that my wife and I are healthy and that our friends are healthy. And may we all, and all of us in our group are still healthy and be being careful, and may that continue.
Amen. Anyone else?
Thankful and grateful for all of you and wishing you and your loved ones health and happiness.
Don?
He's
Don, you're
muted.
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 Okay, sorry. I'm grateful and thankful for all the blessings I have and to be part of this. And every day I have more than I deserve. So.
Anyone else? Yes, Grace. And then Michael.
Yes, I'm very thankful to be spending time with my mother, and looking forward to her pecan pie and her homemade stuffing.
Enjoy.
Right. That should be fun. Yes, Michael.
Thankful that I have the ability and the capacity to help others.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. And Ruth Ann, did you have any?
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm thankful, like everybody else, for the health of everybody, and I'm thankful for semi-mastering all this technology that has allowed us to stay together, so that at least we as a group, at least these few people here, I don't think we feel as isolated as a lot of people right now have felt, because whether we're able to get together in person or electronically, at least we're able to get together and see other people.
Good point. Yes, David.
It's Wendy.
Oh, okay.
Just like everybody else, David and I are both super thankful that our entire family, both sides, are all doing very well. I'm thankful for the fact that we live right next to open desert. We can go outside and breathe fresh air without worrying about a mask. And I'm super thankful that this may be our last Thanksgiving away from our family, because those vaccines, we hope, will all work and we will get them way before next year.
I just want to add, I would echo everything everyone has said, and I think most of us would agree that everybody said a lot of profound reasons for giving thanks. But I want to thank my family, not just my immediate family and my friends, but also those that made up my heritage, that have led me and us, each of us, to this time when we can discuss what has come from before. One of the things I wanted to mention, and then I'll let everyone go. A couple of weeks ago, right after we met, I received a notice that a very famous man that we cite all the time, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, passed away. And he was, having read a number of his books and essays, he really influenced my life. And I want to say that thank you. Having been exposed to his thinking and his writings has been a tremendous mitzvah for many, many people, but also has helped me understand my religion a little better. And I wanted to say thank you for that experience. Rabbi Sachs, I don't know, we cite a lot of his readings. I have brought them up for several years because of this. And one of the things that people may not have been aware of is that he battled cancer 3 times, never spoke about it once. The vast majority of people in the world never knew that this man was suffering from cancer like that.
How did you know that?
And he was always setting the example of looking out for others. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm thankful for his teaching for that. Very interesting fellow. And you can Google, go on Wikipedia, look up anything you want. The man had a remarkable life, met with very remarkable people over his lifespan. And I just wanted to say that I want to thank him as well as my parents and other people that I have met, not only in the present day, but in the past that are no longer with us. And so with that, I just wanted to say thank you.
Amen.
So any announcements? Ruth Ann, did you have any announcements that, and Michael, if you have any other announcements, upcoming concert?
Pardon me, but I do have to run. So,
okay, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Shabbat shalom.
Ruth Ann, have a good trip. Safe trip.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Me too. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shalom. No, just board meeting on Monday, and Michael is having his a concert tomorrow afternoon, right, Michael?
Yeah, they're more on the order of a performance, not a concert, because
Okay.
it's only a couple of people at a time, social distance. But Sundays from 2 to 3, and whoever
Okay.
would like to partake is welcome.
And
Okay.
otherwise, it's a quiet week. Thanksgiving, and then Torah study.
Be careful, everybody.
You too, everyone. Yes, Gail, were you going to say so? Oh, just waving goodbye. Okay. Thank you.
Susan
Thank
have something
you,
to
Ruth
say?
Ann.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to say what I was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did. Okay, I apologize.
No. Well, I just wanted to add, like everyone else, I'm grateful for my husband, family, friends that we're all safe and healthy. And I just want to add that I'm especially grateful that we can study God's word in freedom without fear. And I think that's a wonderful thing, a wonderful blessing.
Amen.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Have a good
Have a very good
Thanksgiving.
week and Thanksgiving.